Welcome to Piano with Danielle. In this series of videos, I will be explaining about all elements of musical theory. I will be following the Associated Board of the Royal Schools of Music's graded music theory and practice workbooks, but these are just a guide and these videos can be used for general theory questions. In this session, I'm going to be talking about the treble and bass clefs. There are a number of different clefs that are used, but let's start with the most common, the treble clef. In piano, we generally use the right hand for the notes in the treble clef, and we call these high notes because that is where the high sounds are. The treble clef is also sometimes called the G clef, as the middle part of it is looped around the G line. I will be explaining where all the notes of the treble clef stave live next. The clef can be pretty tricky to draw, but if we start here, loop around here, go up this side, and then come down in a straight line there with a flick at the end, we can soon get the hang of it. Let me show you again on a blank stave. Now, how about the notes themselves? In music, we use the first 7 letters of the alphabet, A, B, C, D, E, F and G. But where do they live? What is the best way of remembering where each one lives and what they're called? Many musicians use sentences or words to help them remember. Let's take a look. These are the line notes for the treble clef. Remember, I call them line notes as they go through the lines of the stave. Others will have variations of sentences that they use, but this is the one I have always used. Every good boy deserves football. We take the first letter of every word to tell us the name of the notes. E, G, B, D and F. Now, let's look at the space notes. Remember, we call them space notes as they go in the spaces between the lines. Here we have F, A, C, E, which spells the word face. You may notice that we haven't talked about middle C or D. Let's not forget about them. These two notes don't technically live on the stave, so don't form part of words or sentences that we use, but we must remember that they are there. Let's take a look at them. Middle C lives on a ledger line just below the stave. You may remember we talked about ledger lines in a previous video. D lives just above it and touches the stave itself. Why is the note called middle C? You may think it's because it's in the middle of the piano and that's where it's got its name. This, however, is not true. The note is called middle C as it lives in the middle between the treble and the bass clef stave. Now, let's take a look at the bass clef. In piano, we generally use the left hand to play the bass clef, and we call these notes low notes, as this is where the low sounds live. The bass clef, sometimes known as the F clef, as it loops around the F line. It's much easier to draw than a treble clef. Let's look at this example. We start here and then we loop around here, and don't forget the 2 dots that appear either side of the F. Sometimes you will also see it drawn this way, but the first way is the most common. Let's show you again on a blank slide how it is drawn. Now, let's take a look at the notes on the bass clef stave. We have, for the line notes, great big dogs fight animals. Once again, we take the first letters G, B, D, F and A. For the space notes, we have all cows eat grass. giving us an A, C, E and G. Once again, we have two notes that don't actually live on the stave, so we mustn't forget about them. We have B, which sits just on top of the stave, and middle C, this time appearing the other way round to the treble clef, but still with its ledger line going through it. Now, let's do an exercise and see if we can name all the notes on the stave. Let's apply what we've learnt so far. I'm going to start with all the space notes in the treble clef. If you remember, we use the word face to identify the notes, the space notes of the treble clef. This would then give me an F for the first space note and an A for the second. Now for the line notes in the treble clef. My sentence was every good boy deserves football, so I therefore have a D and an F. This leaves just one note at the end. If you remember, two of the notes, middle C and D, did not live on the stave but just underneath. I said that the one note that touches the stave is called D. This therefore should be labelled as D. Next, we must look at the bass clef notes. Let's start with the line notes this time. My sentence was great big dogs fight animals, so that will give me a D, an F, a D and a G. My space note sentence was all cows eat grass, so I've therefore got a C here. The final note doesn't live on the stave but sits this just on top. This is therefore a B. Now I have this knowledge, I can find any note I need to on the stave. Let's look at just one last type of question. Here I have the notes labelled but no clefs. Which clef, treble or bass, will make these notes correct? For this first one, I know that all cows eat grass. So this is a C in the bass clef. For the next one, I know that every good boy deserves football. So this is an F in the treble clef. For the third one, I know that the space notes of spell F, A, C, E. So this is a C in the treble clef. And for the final one, I know that great big dogs fight animals. So this is a B in the bass clef. That concludes the topic of treble and bass clefs. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel, where you will find various other videos to help you on your musical journey. Thank you.